Hi everyone, my name is Veronica Watson. I'm the Community Programs Manager for the Neighborhood Assistance Program, otherwise known as NAP, here at IHEDA. My clock says it is right at 1 o'clock, so I want to go ahead and get started so that we can be respectful of everyone's time and be done by 2 o'clock. Before I get rolling though, I do want to ask if someone could go ahead and post a question or a comment to let me know that the audio is working. That would help me greatly make sure that I've got everything started the way I was supposed to. All right, awesome. I've got confirmation. Thank you all for responding. I'll go ahead and get started. All right, so just to give you a brief overview of what I'll be covering in the next hour, I'm going to do a brief introduction to our agency and then a little bit for myself and my staff member that works on this program. And then I'll go into an overview of NAP. And this is for anyone that is completely new to the program. If you are an old timer, if you've been doing this for several years, this will be information that you're familiar with. I'll go through it pretty quickly, and then I'll get into the application. And it's going to be pretty cut and dry, just going over everything that we are asking for in this year's application, which isn't too different from previous year's applications, but I think it can be helpful if you hear it from us, what we are looking for and a little bit of why, and that might help you prepare your answers to be a little bit stronger than maybe they would otherwise. And finally, I'll go a little bit into the reporting that is required for anyone that is accepted into the NAP program. I don't go too in depth. I hope to have another webinar probably in July that for anyone that is accepted into the program to go more in depth on how the reporting works and what we expect from that. But I do want to give anyone that is applying kind of a brief overview of what's expected so that they know what they're signing up for. Some housekeeping things. You can post questions at any point during the webinar. I encourage you to post questions. Please be as specific as possible though, because I'm probably going to wait until the end to answer some of those or answer most of those. I do have a colleague on the line, Vita Morris-May, and she's also going to be keeping an eye on questions. So she might pop up and ask or answer those throughout. But for the most part, we're going to keep most of the Q&A until the end. So you can just get through this information as quickly as possible. As I said, my name is Veronica Watson. I am the Community Programs Manager for this program. And then Vita Morris-May is on the line. We are the two staff members at IHEDA that you will probably hear from most consistently with this program. And just to give a brief overview of our agency, we are the Indiana Housing Community Development Authority. We are the Housing Finance Authority for Indiana. So most of our programs at our agency revolve around housing, but we do have some general community development programs that can help fulfill our vision and mission for the state, which is a sustainable quality of life for all Hoosiers where they can live in the community of their choice. And our overall mission is to provide housing opportunities, promote self-sufficiency, and strengthen communities. So it's that last one, especially the strengthen communities, that I think NAP, this program falls under at the agency. And again, a brief overview of the program. It's a state program and it's a state tax credit program. It provides $2.5 million in tax credits to nonprofits every year as a fundraising tool and for capacity building. And the way that the tax credits work is that we have control for tax credits. We award them out to you all, to nonprofit organizations during this application period. And then you will take whatever tax credits that you are eventually awarded, and you will distribute those to your donors in exchange for donations. And so the tax credit will be a value of 50% of their donation. So if you have a tax credit of $100 and you distribute that to a donor, in exchange, they'll need to give you a $200 donation. Another way of thinking of that is we have $2.5 million in tax credits that we give out. That is $5 million in direct funding if all of those tax credits are distributed throughout the state. As I mentioned, this is a state program. It was set up in Indiana code. There's a code name if you want to ever look up how exactly this is spelled out in the Indiana Code. And in that section, it states that IHCDA is the agency that administers the program in partnership with the Indiana Department of Revenue. So they are the ones that actually handle the tax credits once your donors put those on their tax forms. And so anytime that you have a tax credit question or what counts for tax credits, a lot of times we end up having to reach out to them for that information, since we don't normally handle tax credits, or we don't handle people's tax returns. But for the most part, anything program or policy related, that goes through us at IHCDA. And really quick, I know most of you, if not all of you, understand how tax credits work, but sometimes we will get questions about the difference between tax credits and tax deductions. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page, the tax credit is what reduces a taxpayer's total tax liability. It doesn't reduce the income that their taxes are based on. It reduces what they actually owe in their state taxes. Again, this is a state tax credit program, so this does not go on their federal taxes. It only goes on their state taxes, and donors are only eligible if they have state tax credit liability. So you can't sell this to donors who only pay Ohio taxes or Illinois taxes. They have to be paying Indiana taxes in order to be eligible for this tax credit. And we've got a little bit of math on the screen. I won't go through it. These slides will be made available after the webinar. I'll go ahead and send the slides directly to everyone that was registered. And then probably early next week, I will post the recording along with the slides to the IHCDA NAP webpage on our website. So keep an eye out for those after today. All right, so the timeline for this year's NAP program, I think we've moved it up a little bit earlier than what it was last year. We've got our application was released earlier this week on Monday. The webinar is today, a couple days later. The due date for applications to be complete is by 5 p.m. Eastern time on April 27th. Anything that is submitted after that, whether it's a new application or an update to an already submitted application, those will no longer be accepted after 5 p.m. on April 27th. So make sure if you haven't already submitted your application, which quite a few of you have already, if you haven't already, that you're planning to do so in the next 2.5 weeks. Now we'll take most of May to review those applications, and we hope right now our plan is to announce who's actually awarded NAP credits by June 1st. We'll send out a press release through the NAP listserv, and we'll post it to the website. And then we'll have our contracts sent to anyone that is receiving the award by June 15th. Those are done virtually. You are not going to be sent a paper contract. You'll be sent a contract to the email, the executive director that you put on your application. So make sure you provide correct email addresses. But it will be sent to them to do an e-signature right around June 15th. Once we see that, we'll sign it on our end, and we hope to have everything done by June 29th. And that's when that is the deadline for you all to sign it on your end. And usually we're pretty quick at signing it on our end. And we want everything done and finalized by July 1st. That is the start of the program year. That is the first day that you can start selling or distributing your tax credits. Even if you sign your contract earlier, you will need to wait to actually distribute your tax credits until July 1st. And I have a question, Vita?
Yeah, Veronica, someone said they're not able to see the slides.
Okay, can someone confirm whether or not they can see the slides, just so we see if it's a system-wide issue? But I do have screen share going, so I'm not sure. Okay, we do have confirmation that people are seeing slides. Okay. Lots of confirmation. Thank you. Okay. So sorry for whoever is having that technical difficulty. Like I said, we'll make the slides available right after this. I'll send it to everyone that registered for this webinar, and we'll post it to our website next week, along with the recording. So you'll be able to review everything, if not later today, then next week. Okay, so now getting into the application that we are asking for this year. As I mentioned, there aren't a lot of updates from previous years. So I'm going to try and go through these pretty quickly and then just make note of anything that we have noticed so far people having issues with. The first thing that you're going to see is just general information about your organization, name, address, the contact information for your executive director and your NAP contact person. Now, please make sure that you give the most up-to-date email contact information for those two individuals. Those are, that's the email that we will use for all future communication with your agency. So if you provide the incorrect email address or put the wrong person, that can sometimes gum up the works when it comes to communication, especially with the contracts needing to be signed by July 1. It's really important that we have the correct information from the get-go. So please make sure that you're careful about that. And then also just provide information about the mission of your organization. And the next section is asking about for information to make sure that we can ensure that your organization is eligible to receive any funds from our agency, not just NAP credits, but as a state agency, we can really only work with agencies that are designated 501c3 organizations and that have good standing with the Indiana Secretary of State. So to help us confirm those, we are asking you to upload your most recent 501c3 designation letter, and then also a copy of the a document from the Indiana Secretary of State's website. We give instructions on the application about how to access the exact document that we're looking for, so I won't go into that here, but I do want to make note for the Indiana Secretary of State website that when you upload the form needs to show that you are currently registered as a nonprofit corporation in Indiana and that your registration is set to expire in the future, that the expiration is not already passed, or that it doesn't show that you are currently in the application stage. It needs to show that you are currently registered with a future expiration date. I think we've had a couple of agencies submit something where either the expiration date had passed or it shows that they are in the application stages, and neither of those will be accepted by our agency. We need to show that you are in good standing now. So to make sure that you are looking at that on that form. So once you give information about your organization, we're going to ask about the services that you are providing that make you eligible specifically for NAP credits. So this is the list of all the services that you could potentially provide in order to receive NAP credits. We ask that you only choose one when you are submitting an application for NAP tax credits, and make sure that you choose the one that is most aligned with the work that you are actually completing. We don't provide definitions for what any of these means, other than I think job training, education have a little bit of definition of what those services actually look like. So you do have quite a bit of latitude in coming up the service that best fits the service that you are providing. If we do think that they don't fit at all, we will come back and ask questions about that. So don't go too crazy when you are choosing the service that makes you eligible for NAP credits. But I just wanted to point out that you do have a little bit of latitude with that. And I'll also point out that most of these services, if you are providing them in order to receive NAP credits, they need to be provided in economically disadvantaged areas. Now, there is a definition that the legislation provides that you need to fit is that it's an enterprise zone or any other federally or locally designated economically disadvantaged area in Indiana. Now, we do allow for other types of areas other than enterprise zones. Specifically on the application, we allow for opportunity zones and qualified census tracts. And we provide links to websites where you can check to see if where you're providing services falls within one of those types of areas. We are willing to consider other types of areas other than those three, but they need to be pre-approved by either Vita or myself before you can apply. Last year, we left it completely open and people could just list whatever areas that fit what they were doing, but we got some areas that were either not up to date. I think medically underserved areas based on, I think like low income medically underserved areas was one that we saw, which sounds like it fits and something that I'd be willing to consider. But the last time that any of those had been updated was like 1979. And we need areas that were designated at least a little bit more recently, preferably in the last 5 years. I think another area that we looked at was the USDA food deserts, low-income areas that are food deserts. So because those are areas that take into account the economic status of residents, we are willing to consider those, but we want to make sure that we're accepting ones that are recent and that do actually take into account the economic status of local residents. So if you don't fall within one of those 3 areas that we have listed, but there is another area that you think you would fit into, feel free to send those to us. Make sure you do that before you submit your application so that we can make sure to approve that and see that approval when we are reviewing your application. And then the one change, the big change that we made with this for this year is that you can only name up to 5 areas, and that you have to, when you say that you're serving those areas, you are committing to spending the funds that you receive for distributing NAP tax credits, that you are confirming you'll spend those funds in those areas. Last year, we received quite a few applications that listed all enterprise zones in Indiana, or all opportunity zones in Indiana, or all qualified census tracts in Indiana, which are quite a few, so that made for the application to be very long. And we don't think that that fits the spirit of neighborhood-based assistance. We're really looking for projects that are neighborhood-based. We are willing to work with statewide organizations, but they need to be working in specific neighborhoods and committing to spending funds in those neighborhoods, not just we offer our services statewide. Anyone in any area can utilize our services. That's not a neighborhood-based approach, which is what this program is really looking for. So if you have any questions about that, specifically with your project, I know this is an update that some people might have questions about. We'll try to address those as they come up either here, or we can work with you one-on-one if you reach out to us. Now, the 2 caveats that we have for providing services not in designated economically disadvantaged areas is job training and crime prevention. According to legislation, those 2 types of services can be provided directly to designated economically disadvantaged populations. So if you are providing services specifically to low-income populations, not in a low-income area, if they're job training, crime prevention, that's fine. And there's a definition for that. According to legislation, it's a household with an annual income at or below 80% AMI or other federally designated target population. Now, in the application and in our manual, we are specifically calling out anyone below 125% of the federal poverty guidelines. And again, we're open to other types of target populations. So if you apply for either job training or crime prevention, stating that you're providing those to economically disadvantaged households, you will be asked to show or to explain how you income qualify individuals, just to make sure that that is something that is written into your program rules. And if you have another target population, you'll be asked again to explain what that target population is and how exactly you verify basically the low income status. And whatever target population you choose, income status does need to be a part of that target population's definition. I know some agencies specifically support individuals with developmental disabilities or maybe physical disabilities, and that alone does not meet the definition of economically disadvantaged household. You will need to show that the individuals you are serving with funds from NAP credits will be served, that they are economically disadvantaged households, and you'll need to show how you income qualify them. All right, so once you work through what type of service you provide and who you provide it to or where you are providing it, we'll ask for some general information about the project or program. We'll ask for the name, just a general description. With the description, I will say, please do not provide your agency's mission again or vision. Please provide a program-specific description of what you will be doing with the funds that you raised from distributing NAP credits. We saw that quite a bit last year where agencies would just copy and paste their mission or their vision. That's why we asked for that at the beginning of the application. When it gets down to what you're actually going to be doing with NAP credits, we need a little bit more specificity. We don't need a novel. You don't need to give us pages and pages of information. There's only, I think there's a there's a character limit, I think, for that question. But a couple paragraphs is fine, just describing the program or the project and how exactly the funds will be used. As a separate question, we ask for an estimate of the number of individuals to be served. I understand that sometimes programs focus on families, or they just generally focus on areas, that counting individuals is not something you normally do. We ask that you still provide an estimate, and this just makes it easier for us to report on this program if we use the same metrics for everyone across the board. So we're not double checking this. You know, if you just need to give a rough estimate and that's all you can provide, that's fine, but that is a number that we need. And then we'll have a series of questions on types of individuals served. This is actually information that has been requested from Prosperity Indiana in the past, which is a state association that can sometimes lobby for this program. They would like to know the types of individuals that are being served by NAP tax credits. There's a series of questions, just yes or no, do you plan to serve this population with NAP tax credits? Specifically, do you plan to target them? Now, I know a lot of your services are completely open to all types of different populations, and that's fine, but we really want to know who is targeting veterans, who is targeting kids aging out of foster care, who is targeting LGBTQ populations. So if you are targeting any of the population types that are listed, please just go ahead and mark that as yes. Otherwise, you can go ahead and mark no. Know that if you mark no for everything, that does not disqualify you from NAP tax credits, that we really just are trying to get some good reporting data for this program. And then I want to make note here that when you are describing the project that you will be funding with NAP tax credits, that it relates directly back to the eligible service. So whatever you choose from this list, that the program that you describe relates directly back to that. That if you say that you are providing a recreational facility, that when your project description, you talk about that exact recreational facility. You don't talk about some other type of project or program. We saw that sometimes in applications last year, and we're going to be cracking down, I think, a little bit harder this year, that when you say this is the service that makes you eligible to receive NAP tax credits, that's what the tax credits actually go towards. All right, so here's another semi-big change for this year. It's the number of tax credits that you can actually request. And this year, it is up to 25,000 if you have received NAP tax credits in the past, and then up to 5,000 if you are completely new to the NAP program. Now, we had limits like these in previous years, but they were higher. They were 50,000, 40,000. 40,000 if you had received NAP credits previously, and then I believe 15,000 if you were new to the NAP program. The reason that we lowered these is because no one has actually received those amounts, I think, in probably 5 years. The amount of agencies that we have applying for the program has limited the amount that we can give to each agency. Last year, the most that we gave out was, I think, 12,000 for returning agencies, and then maybe 2,000 or 3,000 to new agencies. And so it was our decision, it was our view that setting such a maximum amount that you can apply for, but then not being able to even come close to providing that was unfair. That seems a little unfair when you as an agency are trying to plan for the next year and plan your funding streams. You apply for 40,000 and you are hoping to get 80,000 total in funds when you sell all of those. But at the end of the day, you only end up getting 12,000 in credits and then 24,000 when you sell those. That's a very large gap, and I think that makes planning quite difficult. So for now, for this year, these are the limits that we've set. Most likely no one will actually still receive these amounts, but the amount that you end up receiving should be a lot closer to this than it has been in the past, and I'm hoping that helps everyone with their planning for the next year. Now, additional notes on credits, on terminology, and I think we haven't had as much confusion about this in the last year or two, but this has been a thing in the past, so I want to make sure we're on this. Credits are what we award you, and that's what we outline in the grantee agreement that you receive from us when you receive an award for NAP from us. Funds are what you raise when you sell or distribute those credits to donors. We talk about both in this program. I mention both, usually interchangeably, which is probably not a great idea. But at the end of the day, when we ask for reports on this, we will ask about both, and we will be especially interested in the funding aspect. So we will ask you how many credits did you sell, and then we will also ask you how much funding did you raise, and how much and what did you spend on, or how much of that funding did you spend on your project. The expectation is that you put all of the funds that you raise from distributing tax credits towards your NAP supported project, and that you report on all of those funds. So put simply, if we award you $10,000 in credits, we're going to want to, and you sell all of those, we're going to want to know what you do with all 20,000 that you raised from distributing those credits. I think sometimes when organizations see on the awards that we give out 10,000 in tax credits, then their response and reports is to talk about the $10,000. This is what we did with the $10,000 that we raised. And really, we want to know what you did with the $20,000 that you raised. That extra $10,000 is not money that you can just do whatever you want with. We consider that NAP funding, and so we need to include in the reports what you do with that full amount. So just make sure that you're thinking about that, and that you are fully committing to spending all of the funding that you raise from NAP tax credits on the project that you provide in this application. All right, at the end of the application, you're going to be asked to certify a couple of things. One of them being that you understand the reporting requirements for this program. That is something that we usually have at least a couple of agencies struggle with every year, that they don't quite understand the reporting requirements. So we've included that in the application for the last 2 years, so that up front you are reading what is expected of you, and you are certifying that you understand, and that if you receive an award, that you will commit to meeting those expectations. So the reporting requirements that you will be signing off on is that you will hit the benchmarks. There are two, I'll go into those in a couple of minutes, but that you will hit the benchmark deadlines, and then the reporting deadlines for those benchmarks in order to be eligible for 2021 NAP tax credits. And then also there is a closeout report that will be due in September 2021. And you are committing to submitting that closeout report and in order to stay eligible for 2022 NAP tax credits. So again, we're putting that up front so that you are aware, that your agency is aware, that even if you leave, everyone at your agency should know that these are the reporting requirements that you are committing to meeting in order to keep your NAP tax credits now and for the future. And then after that, you'll be asked to confirm that all the information is correct. And then you'll go ahead and hit submit. Now, a couple of things I'll point out here. One, you have to hit submit. We've had in the past a couple of agencies that don't hit submit. I think maybe try and print out the application and either send it to us or email it to us, or hit print, realizing and not realize that they didn't hit submit. If we do not receive your application through JotForm, which is the system where we host our application, we do not recognize it. We won't accept it. We won't accept paper copies. We won't accept email copies. It has to go through JotForm. So make sure that when you have filled in everything on your application, that you actually hit submit. And one of the things that you'll be asked to provide before you hit submit is an email for one last time for whoever is completing the application. And then that email will be used to send an email response from JotForm giving you a copy of your application. And then there should be a link in that email so that if you need to update information in your application, you realize later you gave the wrong answer on something, or you need to change an email address, you should be able to use the link that you receive in that email confirmation to go back to your application and update it. We do not want people submitting multiple applications. It makes it difficult. It makes our jobs even more difficult than they already are in reviewing the 300 applications that we normally get. So please make sure that you receive that email confirmation. If you do not, go ahead and email us at the NAP email address, and we'll try and send you the link that will give you access to your application. Please make sure you check your inbox and your spam folder. Sometimes JotForm emails can go to spam, and make sure that you have that email confirmation. That will tell you that you've submitted your application correctly. You don't need to check with us to make sure that we've received it. That email confirmation tells you we've received it. All right, so going into the awards process a little bit. So you all know this is a formula-based program. We are not making funding decisions based on quality of projects. We are not making decisions based on projects that we like better than others. This is simply if you meet all the eligibility requirements, you are guaranteed NAP tax credits. And so the way that we figure out the award amounts is we add all of the requests together. And then we divide 2.5 million by that amount. That gives us the allocation percentage, which is what we use to multiply against your request, which is the award amount. So last year, I think we had something like 8 or 9 million in total requests for NAP tax credits. We had 2.5 million available, and that's what we have every year. So the allocation percentage was somewhere around a quarter. I can't remember exactly what it was. So basically, whenever someone requested $40,000, that's how they ended getting 12,000 in total tax credits. So be warned that whatever you request from this year, you will still probably get just only a percentage of that. Now, hopefully it will be a higher percentage than it was last year, but the total amount of credits that we're expecting each agency to receive this year will probably be pretty similar to last year. If you ask for the full amount, you'll probably still get somewhere around 11 to 13,000 based on last year's numbers. And if you are new to NAP, you'll probably get closer to somewhere between 1 and 3,000. All right, so the timeline, once you are accepted into the program, you should be alerted right around June 1st. We will issue our grant agreement around June 15th. You have it signed back to us by June 29th so that everything is done and ready for July 1st kickoff. Then everything kind of goes quiet. Then it's on you to distribute your tax credits and get the funding from your local donors. The next thing that we'll check in with you on is the benchmark. By December 31st of this year, you will need to have sold 60% of the tax credits that you receive from us in June and July. And you'll need to report on those by mid-January. January 18th will be the date for this coming year. So it gives you almost 3 weeks to finish the report for your 60% benchmark. And then assuming that you meet that and you continue on with the program, the next benchmark is March 31st. By March 31st, you'll need to have sold all of your tax credits if you haven't already. If you sold all of your tax credits by December 31st, and you've reported all of those in your January benchmark report, you don't need to worry about the second benchmark, but anything that you have remaining in 2021, you'll need to have sold by March 31st. And then you'll need to report on those by April 19th. And then looking further out, everything that you raise from distributing your tax credits, you'll need to have spent and done by mid-September so that you can then report on those as a part of the closeout report at the end of September 2021. So this is really our agreements for this program are 1 year or 12 months, but it really is more of a year and 3 months, maybe a 15-month program. We collect our reporting in September of every year. All right, contacting us. This is very important, so please pay attention. If you have a program question, if you're not really sure how something works, you're not sure if a donation counts for NAP tax credits, if you're not sure if a donor is eligible, please make sure that you review the manual and the FAQ that we have listed on our webpage. I can't tell you how many questions we get from individuals or from organizations, questions that are readily available in the manual and the FAQ. We went through the manual this year, made some updates. Programmatically, there are not a lot of updates, but the flow of the manual changed significantly so that it makes it a little bit easier to find the answers that you're looking for. So please make sure you're reviewing that. Please make sure you're making use of the search button. Even if you're not sure that you catch something in the table of contents, go ahead and do a quick search of the entire document to see if the phrase that you're looking for or interested in is in there. Because usually 9 times out of 10 it is. Now, in the few cases where it isn't, where you have an issue that we just haven't seen yet, which happens. We usually get at least a couple of those a year. That's when you go ahead and email us at the NAP inbox. And please, when you do so, include your organization, your contract number or your grantee agreement number. And if you have a question about a report, please tell us the name of the report. We'll get quite a few emails throughout the year, people that have what seem to us to be random questions because we don't have that context. We really need that context in order to be able to adequately address whatever question that you have. So please make sure when you email us. Same thing if you call us, especially if you call us, have your organization name and your contract number ready, and just tell us up front that this is a NAP related question. Vita and I oversee 6 programs total. So if we get a random question especially to our personal inboxes, without knowing that it's about NAP or having a NAP contract number, we're not going to be able to help you. We're going to end up asking you for that information anyway. So please make sure you have that available whenever you contact us through email or over the phone. And then the one caveat I'll have to contact information is if you have a question about IHCDA Online, which is the system that we use for the benchmark reports, for the 60% benchmark report due in January and the 100% benchmark report due in April, please send those first to claims at ihcda.in.gov. That system, Vita and I don't have access to that system. We can do some things, but for the most part, your questions are going to have to be addressed by the department that does have access to that system, which is our financial operations department. So please go to them first with anything systems related. And then if for whatever reason your question is not addressed or it's an emergency, then you can go ahead and email us so that we know and can try and push your question forward. I will say financial operations are usually very quick to answer questions and concerns, so that we normally don't have to get involved with anything like that. So that's all I have for today. I know that was just kind of a quick overview of probably a lot of information most of you already know if you've been through this program before. Like I said, I just wanted to give you all a snapshot of what we're asking for and why. So hopefully that can help you as you figure out your answers to our questions. I see we've got quite a few questions in the question box, so I'll go ahead and try and answer some of those right now. So we've got a question. Our agency could serve clients in more than 5 tracks. Can we add more than 5, or is that the maximum number? We ask that you all, so when you are answering the question, please provide the names of the economically disadvantaged areas that you are serving. Please only provide 5. We don't need the full list that you are serving. Now note, if you do serve outside of those 5 areas, wherever you are providing your funds to, they still need to be economically disadvantaged areas. You cannot use NAP funds outside of economically disadvantaged areas. That was what this program was for, is to help neighborhood-based issues. Again, with the caveat of job training and crime prevention. Those can be given directly to basically low-income households. Everything else needs to be in economically disadvantaged areas. But we only really need 5, up to 5. If you only want to list 1 or 2, that's fine. But again, you are committing to using the funds in those areas. Don't provide areas where you could provide services. List the areas where you will provide services with NAP funds. And again, if you have questions about that, as it relates to your specific project, go ahead and email us and we can talk through that in a little bit more detail and how that addresses or how that affects your particular project or program. Okay, question about using the name of the organization. We are a local chapter of a national 501c3. You want to use your local chapter's name just because there are multiple chapters in Indiana, but the name on your registration is going to be the national organization's name. And I assume your 501c3 registration will also be the NBIS registration name. On the application, use whatever name is on the NBIS registration, the Secretary of State's registration, and or whatever is on your 501c3 document. We need the name on your application of your organization needs to be whatever we end up putting on your grant agreement. So if you have a name that you use locally, but you are registered everywhere as another organization, we need whatever you are registered as, because that is the name that we will put directly into our grant agreements or contracts. So when you promote your NAP tax credits, if you want to use your own local name, that's totally fine. But for our contract purposes, we need whatever name you are actually registered as, whatever name you can use to enter into agreements as. All right, next question. If you participated in previous years, so the question is, if you participated in previous years, in the last 2 years, can we apply for the top amount, or do we still have to do one more year at the 5,000 level? And actually, maybe that means the wording on the question is incorrect. The way that the question should be worded is if you have received NAP tax credits in one of the 3 previous years. So if you received NAP tax credits in 2018, but not 2019, you can go ahead and ask for the highest amount possible. Same if you did 2018, 2019, but not 2017, you can go ahead and ask for the highest amount possible. Now, if you received tax credits before 3 years ago, let's say like 2013, we're going to go ahead and put you back at the lowest amount possible. We do that because we know that there's a lot of turnover at organizations. And so even if your organization is familiar with NAP tax credits or has a history of NAP tax credits, excuse me, there is a likelihood that you're not familiar with the most recent rules and relevant requirements. And that's why we have those differentiations that anyone that is familiar with the program that probably needs less help and knows how to handle the program requirements, those are the ones that we feel comfortable giving the full amount to. Anyone that's new, we're kind of basically putting you on training wheels for this first year and making sure that you can handle the lower amounts. So to answer your question, if you have participated in one of the 3 previous rounds, you can go ahead and ask for the highest amount. Now, you don't have to ask for the highest amount. If you want to ask for a lower amount, that's fine, but you can ask for up to that higher amount. And I have lost my place in questions.
You want me to read it for you?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay, all of our staff is new to the organization within the last 5 years. Is there a way I can find out if our organization has received NAP credits prior to the time to determine if we are completely new or not?
Yeah, so I think I kind of answered that with the last answer. If you have not done NAP tax credits in the last 5 years, we consider you to be new. We're really only looking for agencies that have done it in the last 3 years. And again, if you have questions about that specifically as it regards to your organization, you can feel free to reach out to us. Next question.
If we sold all credits and submitted the 60% benchmark report to reflect that, do we still need to submit the 100% benchmark if there's nothing to report? As I understand from previous emails about the 100% benchmark report, we only need to submit the closeout report in September if all credits were sold by 60% reporting deadline.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think I mentioned this briefly when I was going through the slides, but if you sold 100% of your credits by December 31st and you report all of them on your 60% benchmark report in January, you do not need to do the second benchmark report in April. Now, if you get new credits, which has been done in the past, but we didn't do last year and we don't plan to do this year, unless circumstances change wildly. But if you do get new credits for any new reason in, let's say, January or February, you will need to go ahead and submit a new report to show that you sold those by, you sold them by March and you report that in April. But no, if you have sold all of your credits by December 31st, have no new credits to report, you don't need to worry about the second benchmark report. You do need to do the closeout report. I think some people, especially those that finish with their benchmark reports early, they forget about the closeout report because it's at least 6 months in between. It's at least 6 months since the last report that was due. So don't forget about that. Even if you don't have to do the 100% benchmark report, you still need to do the closeout report. And yeah, I think that answers that question. Oh, and one thing I will say for anyone on the line who has 2019 NAP tax credits, note that the 100% benchmark report for that is due on Monday. So if you did not sell 100% of your credits by December 31st, if you did sell credits this year and you haven't turned in that report, that's due Monday. So please submit that if you haven't already. All right, next question.
Do you have a PDF Word copy of the application available so that we can prepare our answers before entering the form?
Yes, I'll go ahead and send that with the slides that I send out after this to everyone that's registered. And I've also requested that they be asked, that they be added to the website. So they might not be on our website now, but I'm hoping by the end of the day, if not on Monday, because our office is closed tomorrow, that those will be available. But you will definitely get them straight from me via email today.
There seemed to be a lot of variation in the gift levels last year. It looks like the formula you showed was more similar to past gifts. Should we expect more variation like last year if we've been a participant for several years? We always request the top amount we can request.
Yeah, I would, so the formula hasn't changed. The formula that I showed you on the slide, that is the formula that we have used every year. The reason that credit amounts have started to vary wildly, and especially the difference in what you ask and what you receive has varied so wild, the gap has grown, is because we're getting more and more agencies into this program every year. I think even as much as like 4 years ago, we had like half as many as we do now. We were handling something like 120, 130, up to maybe 200 organizations a couple years ago. We're now closer to 300. So the more agencies that we accept into the program because they meet eligibility requirements, and the fact that our funding remains the same, it's static year to year, that is why the amounts that you receive decrease year to year. Now last year it actually increased by a little bit from the year previously, but that's where that number comes from. Now the differences between what agencies get is purely based on, one, are they new or not, and then two, whatever they requested. Like I said in the beginning, we do not base our awards on types of organizations, types of projects, what we like best or not. If you meet basic eligibility requirements, you get credits and you get the same percentage of your request as everyone else. So I know there was a pretty big gap between new organizations and ones that are returning and asked for the full amount. Anything in between those was just based off of agencies asking for different or varying levels of credit.
Has the April 13th deadline changed for the 100% benchmark?
It changes a little bit year to year because an IHCDA requirement for reporting is that due dates land on Mondays. So it's not going to be the reporting deadline is going to change slightly just based on however Mondays fall. I've been pushing it back. It used to actually be like the first or maybe second Monday of a month. This next coming year is going to be the third Monday of the month, just to give you all a little bit more time to meet that benchmark reporting. Now the deadline to sell the credits does not change. It's always December 31st and March 31st. But the reporting, yes, it does change just based on how Mondays fall.
I am new to the program. Is this program a partnership between the private company and the nonprofit? Does the company that is donating the money and receiving the tax credit and the nonprofit need to work together on the project? For example, is a nonprofit going to have a job training program? Does the company donating have to be involved in the job training program?
No. So that's the easy answer to your question. No, it does not need to be a partnership. It's great if you do have that kind of a partnership with a local private company. But no, this is purely for donors. Your donors actually don't need to be companies. You can have donors that are individuals. In fact, that's the vast majority of our donors are individuals. And no, they do not need to be directly involved in your project. They don't even need to be directly involved in your community, as long as they have Indiana state tax liability and meet a couple of other requirements that we have laid out in the manual. Then they can go ahead and donate. You can accept that donation and in exchange provide them with a tax credit.
Okay, the next one is going back to that previous question about the name of the organization and chapters. So my question was the one about the organization's name. I asked because I know other chapters will be applying separately. If we must use the same name that was on the 5013C in the Indiana business document, how will we be able to apply as a local chapter separate from other chapters?
I'm going to go ahead and ask the individual to reach out to us directly. I think this is a very specific question. I think it's just best if we know exactly the organization we're talking to and talking about, so that we can come up with a solution that best fits their organization. And if that is something that you're concerned about for your organization, go ahead and reach out to us, but I don't think it's one that affects most organizations.
I think that's the last of the questions, because I think you explained that the award levels do change from year to year. So
yeah, and if you have a question about why your particular organization has seen, why the change that your organization has seen has happened, I'm happy to walk through that with your organization. So you can go ahead and contact us directly. I think we had that question a couple of times last year. So again, it's helpful for me to know the organization that I'm talking to, so I can look up maybe your application to see what you've requested in the past, and then also so we can compare that to the overall number of organizations that have applied and how that's flushed out with the allocation formula.
That was it, Veronica, for right now.
Well, thanks, Vita, for jumping in. Vita, do you have anything else to add? So Vita has been the one that is reviewing everyone's applications so far. She's been doing a great job. I know she's reaching out to some of you. If you have anyone has any questions, she's been the one that has replied to most of those. So Vita, do you have anything based on what you've seen so far that you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered the one about the Indiana business entity report. We need the actual form that shows not only the they applied, but the date that they responded and the date that it actually expires, which is when the next one is due. So that's the particular, we're getting ones that where you show that you applied, but that's not quite what we need. But I think you've covered that adequately. So.
Okay, and I will say in the application on the online form, we do provide an example of what we're looking for, and it really should look exactly like the example. If it looks different, especially if it looks drastically different, you are probably submitting the wrong form.
Right, and I will say that on the when you do know your disadvantaged area, it's not enough just to say we're serving a disadvantaged area. You have to actually give the opportunity zone, that number, and the census tract number.
Oh yeah, good note. We need to be able to actually, we are checking whenever someone lists an area, we are checking to make sure that that area is in fact listed on one of those types of the list that we provided. So make sure that you give us enough information so we can actually double check that. And yeah, the number is what we need in most cases. I think I give examples on that application of what we're looking for. And again, what you provide should look very similar to what the example says. All right, it looks like we don't have any other questions. Thank you all for joining us. If you do have any other questions, either something that you think is very specific to you, or one that you just like to talk to us one-on-one about, or one that you come up with later today or in the future, you can always reach out to us via the NAP email. That in particular is the best way to contact us right now. We do not have access to our work phones. Our agency is under a work from home order, so we will not be able to answer any phone calls. We can return voicemails, but it might take us a little while. So it's easier at this point, just go ahead and email us so that we can address your question specifically and quickly. Otherwise, I'll let everyone go. Please have a good Thursday, and I look forward to working with you all through the NAP program. Have a great day, everyone.